Good evening, sword enthusiasts, and thank you for tuning into another episode of StudioGDT Reviews. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at the YariNoHanzo Murakami Practical Series Shinken. This is my first sword coming in from YariNoHanzo, and I'd like to talk about them a little bit because it is a slightly different experience than you might have had or might have ordering direct from forges in Longquan. So YariNoHanzo is based out of Italy. They are very practitioner-centric, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And when you order from them, when you take a look at your tracking number, you will see that it does not ship from China. It actually ships out of Europe. So that might pique your interest a little bit. What's going on there? So I dove into that a little bit further and asked some questions of YariNoHanzo to find out, why is this sword coming from Europe as opposed to China direct? And is it costing me any more to do so? And the answer was no, it's not really costing me any more to do so. And there was a very specific reason why it was coming out of Europe. YariNoHanzo does state on their website that they source their blades from Longquan, so it's not like they're hiding or trying to get around that or anything. But what they source from Longquan is the blade itself. Then the blade gets shipped to them in Europe, and the koshire is manufactured in Europe. You might say, okay, well, what's the difference in that? Or, why? Certainly that's an extra step. Well, the difference in that is that they are able to select their fittings and select their themes a lot more easily and kind of provide this traditional aesthetic. What I mean by that is when you take a look at their offerings, you're not going to see a bunch of gold-plated, real bright Tsuba. You're not going to see a bunch of fancy saya with, tons of inlaid mother of pearl or seascapes. You're not going to see any anime-inspired swords or anything like that at all. It is very, very plain, subtle, subdued things, which, if you're like me, that stuff's great and you love it and it's hard to find. So they control what type of koshire options they have, and then they also are responsible for the construction of them. So the one thing that I noticed in taking this sword out of the box was it had just a different feel. Many Longquan swords from different manufacturers, when you grab the saya and you kind of feel it and you shake it a little bit and you look at it and you take a look at the Tsuka and you feel the Tsuka, you could easily say this comes from Longquan, right? From different manufacturers, and you would know that. And if you had handled enough of those, you would know exactly what I mean. This did not feel that way. Didn't have the same sound, didn't have the same feel, didn't have the same profile, didn't have the same presence. It was very different. In fact, the closest thing that this sword could relate to that I have had were 3 different Tozando Iaito. The quality wasn't the exact same as those Tozando swords were, but it was not far off in the style of construction and the way that koshire felt. So they have the blades shipped to them. They inspect that blade. Sometimes, according to them, they may do repolishing if it's not quite done right. And then they fit the koshire there themselves. That should give them an extra edge in taking care of quality control and things like that. But I'm not going to say that that's going to fix all problems all times, because something always slips through. But they'd be more than willing to take care of it, that I'm certain. So again, if you're a practitioner, their whole site, their whole shtick is all practitioner related. You're going to see dojo bags, you're going to see uniforms, you're going to see all kinds of things on there. So I really enjoyed working with this company because it was right up my alley, and I wish there were more options like that out there in this price range. Talking about price range, the Murkami came in with the current exchange rate at right at around 185 US dollars. The sword isn't perfect. There are some things that we'll take a look at and address during the review. But for $185, I think it is a significant amount of sword for the money. I think there are some very unique features on it for that price point. There's a very unique aesthetic on it for that price point. and I think if they could maybe control a couple of things on it, it would be extremely hard to beat. So let's stop looking at me and gabbing on that, and we'll take a look at the sword and we'll see what you think.
First, the disclaimers. I am not a professional martial artist, nor am I a professional sword reviewer. I'm simply a practitioner and an enthusiast. Some of the swords reviewed are sent free of charge as review samples. Others are purchased with my own funds. Regardless of how I obtain them, the review remains the same. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. My opinions are just that, mine alone. I'm bound to get things wrong from time to time. The hope is that when I get something right, that can potentially help you in your own journey. The sword arrived neatly packaged in a branded box, and it was well protected. As you can see here, it came with the included simple free single sword stand, which is a nice addition, and I appreciate the thought with that. One thing that I found very interesting that I have not experienced on any other sword, and maybe this has to do with the fact that the Koshire is put together in Europe, is a wooden wedge that was slid over the length of the entire sword down to the Habaki, and then that butted up against the koiguchi, and it was wrapped together. I thought this was really neat because it would prevent any sort of torsional forces on the sword during transit, and just seemed like a nice extra layer of protection. The Murakami has a very traditional aesthetic and a very, very simple presence about it, and I'm absolutely 100% okay with that. It looks very traditional. It doesn't have any bling associated with it. From a distance, it looks, like an authentic Nihonto, and I think the whole package works very well together when you're looking at it from a distance. The Tsuka has a nice shape and profile to it. It features real Samegawa on it and cotton Ito, and does not feature Hishigami. The cotton Ito felt quite nice in the hand and did feel like a higher quality than I've received when I've selected cotton Ito from some of the Longquan shops. Again, maybe this is the European connection here. You'll notice it blends nicely into the Kashira and has a good clean profile on it. The Kashira is extremely simple. It's devoid of any sort of designs. What you will notice is that the shirodome actually look like they're separate, but they are molded into the casting, so it is a nice, clean, crisp casting that they painted or plated very well to make it stand out as such. Now, although the cotton Ito does feel great in the hand and feels of higher quality, something closer to like a Tozando Iaito, the diamonds do wander a little bit. Maybe this is a result of no Hishigami, maybe it isn't, but not really a huge deal for how well it feels in the hand. The Manuki look nice, they look high quality, but I have absolutely no idea what they are. So if we've got some Manuki nerds out there that know exactly what it is that we're looking at here, please educate me, because I have tried and I have no clue. The overall profile of the Tsuka is slim with no bungee or bulges or anything like that, and it's quite elegant and definitely feels a little bit different than some other swords in the collection. The Tsuka and Ito meet up well to the Fuchi with no real ledges or anything like that, and you will notice that the Fuchi is also devoid of any sort of ornamentation and is just a very simple iron fitting. One thing you'll probably get sick of hearing from me about YariNoHanzo is how I like their aesthetic, how it's very simple, very kind of practitioner-centric, nothing kind of loud or gaudy. This is a simple Moko style Tsuba in iron. One thing that I liked is they went to the trouble of putting a sort of texture to it, so it just didn't look like they took a flat plate of modern metal and then cut it out with a water jet or something like that, so it still has some authenticity about it. I do not believe that any buffalo horn was used in the saya construction. However, the koiguchi was formed nicely, and again, it's more closely related to the 3 different Tozando Iaito that I've had come through my way than any of the other Longquan swords. The saya is also very quiet, and there is not a lot of rattle. It just feels solid when you pick it up, if that makes sense. You do have silver-plated brass shidodome that are actually pressed into the kurigata, so that's nice. They aren't loose. Now let's talk about Sageo for a minute. This sword normally does not come with Sageo, but they had a product that I was interested in taking a look at, so I said, send some Sageo with it. What you're seeing here is their Kakucho Sageo, which is from Japan, and it's about 180 centimeters. So far, this is the first Sageo that I've had on any sword that is the appropriate length for my school. Most Sageo for my school is probably 3 times longer than it needs to be. So if your school uses shorter Sageo and you just have a loop tucked in through the front, I think this is a perfect size for that. It is also stiff and flat and retains its shape, and I'm probably going to order, quite a few more of these from them directly, just in general. The silver-plated Habaki looked a little bit different than the other silver-plated Habaki from Longquan that I've seen, so that was kind of interesting. It had more of a true plated finish than like a rough machine finished, although as you can see there are some pretty aggressive file marks on the Mune side. Overall, the alignment of everything up to this point was fantastic. On to the business end. The Murakami features a 1060 differentially hardened blade. On the website they state that it has Notare Hamon. Their Iaito version of this has Notare Hamon. This sword actually has more of a Gunome style Hamon. As you can see here, this is, definitely not Notari. It also features Bohi. There's the smallest amount of Niku present. It is not a flat-sided blade, but it is also not a leaf-shaped blade either. But it does feel durable while maintaining quickness and lightness. As you can see here, it has an elegant shape and then does start to taper very early to a thin point. Very, very, very light in the hand and elegant looking in my opinion. The Hamon is quite nice, and there's actually some interesting things going on in the seal, but unfortunately the mirror polish, which appears to be mechanical, really obscures a lot of what's going on. There's what looks like some jump marks from running it across a belt, and if I have one gripe about this $185 sword, it would be the mirror polish. You gotta take that into consideration here, because it is a lot of sword for $185, but if there was some way that they could tighten up that mirror polish, this would just be absolutely kind of blowing everything out of the water, especially as far as the feel and use.
So that's it in a nutshell. What do you think about it? I'm going to tell you what I think about it, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I liked it. Recently, Matthew Jensen reviewed, I think, one of their higher end models and then a model right below this one. So this particular model kind of fits right in the mid-range. And to be fair, if the polish was just cleaned up a little bit and was just more consistent, and I might have had a bad example of that, where the polishing machine was a little bit off or whatnot and it skipped a little bit, I couldn't tell you. But if that polish was just cleaned up a little bit, this would be a fantastic sword. It's got a very elegant, slender profile. It's fast. It's loud. I love the fact that for $185, I got cotton Ito. I know some places you pay a little bit more for cotton versus synthetic silk, but I liked that that was the default option, that the default option wasn't synthetic silk, because I would take cotton over synthetic silk. It felt good. It wasn't extra slick. Sometimes cotton can be slick. I thought the shape of the Tsuka was great. The fittings are super, super plain, but not uninteresting, if that makes sense. The saya fit extremely well, and then the Sageo that they included, that normally is not included with the sword, but a separate purchase, was of high quality and appropriate length for my school, at least. I can't do the 12-foot long Sageo and wrap it around the saya. We don't do that. So this was a perfect size. So all in all, from a practitioner standpoint, it was, in my opinion, a fantastic school sword. Hopefully I get an opportunity to take a look at one of their higher quality swords with maybe a better polish on it and some better fittings, just to see exactly what they can do. But all in all, this is a great sword that I love having in my collection. And I might clean up the polish myself a little bit if I'm feeling froggy. But even at that point, what it looks like now, I still think it's worth the $185, because if you compare that to some other things out there in the marketplace, you're looking at through hardened, which you may prefer that, but it's not particularly interesting to look at. You're looking at swords that don't have particularly tight Ito, or it's synthetic Ito. You're looking at swords that have extremely loud, rattly saya. So I do think there's a strong value to it. So want to say thank you to YariNoHanzo. Really loved the sword, liked it. I hope you guys did too. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, if you like what we do here, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It helps the manufacturers know that their time is well spent. So thank you for stopping by, and I hope you guys and gals have a fantastic evening. Take care.
Studio GDT reviews are made possible by the following sponsors: